Hi, I'm Wade Tolles. I'm a Senior Sustainability Software Application Specialist for IBM. And for the next few minutes, we're going to be talking about IBM Common Licensing and how to upgrade the license server from version 8.1.6 to version 9.0. A lot of our customers are currently running version 8.1.6 of the server because that's what's been around for a long time. It's essentially the FlexLM license server. So we're going to be talking about how to upgrade that to the 9.0 version because version 8.1.6 is no longer supported by IBM as of April of 2022. Now to do this, it's really only one prerequisite, and that is that you have the version 9 of the software. That can be downloaded from your Passport Advantage, and it's just License Key Server v9.0 for Windows multi-platform or for Linux, whichever operating system you're working on. And that's it. That's the prerequisites. There's a few things that are different, and that's what I want to talk to you about tonight or today. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So first of all, note that we have an existing License Key Server. I'm sure you're familiar with the Windows menu here, where you can see the IBM Rational License Key Administrator information and the license tools that come with that License Key Server. Now, version 9 is a little bit different, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install it. So note that on this server, we have a folder that is for our software, and I have downloaded and unzipped the License Key Server for Windows. The other thing I've done is gone ahead and opened up the license key or the IBM Installation Manager. And in the manager, I've gone to my preferences and I've added the repository location for the license key server information. So that is ready to go. One thing I also want to note is that our Jazz server is able to see the 8.1.6 license key server. So you want to make sure that your initial, or rather your current license server is working, and in this case it is. Now you'll be using the license server typically if you have floating licenses for doors, or if you're using tokens for the rational tools. So let's go ahead and now we will go back and note first of all where our license key server is. One thing that I'm going to show you is how to upgrade. Sometimes it's easier to install to a new server on a new operating system. Perhaps your existing environment is running on an older version of Windows or an out of support version of Windows, something to that effect. So it may be easier just to install to a new server. And then when you've completed the installation, simply decommission the old server and rename the new server the same thing that the old server is named. But that's up to you. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Note also the port location. I'm using the standard port 27,000. Now it's very important to understand when you upgrade that the return port, or rather the vendor port, is by default 27001. That is a default port setting when it comes to the version 8.1.6. It is not default on the 9.0. So that is a floating port. So you'll have to set that, and I'll show you how to do that. But just understand that our current license server is functional. We're going to use the same settings on a new server, or rather on a new implementation. So we'll go back to our server, and instead of selecting install, we're going to select upgrade, or update rather. And we'll select our license key server and click next. And it is currently running. So what we're going to do is we're going to shut down our license key server, which is the FlexLM server. Now that that's stopped, we can go ahead and try that again, and it should be fine. Accept the license agreement. We're going to install our license key server version 9.0, Note that our installation directory is going to be the rational LKS. Let's click Update. And we are now finished with the update. We can close our installation manager. And note that the FlexLM is now no longer in our environment, or rather in our task manager. However, we have a new item called the IBM license key server. Note that our environment, if we go to our C drive and we go to IBM, we now have the rational LKS folder. In that folder, we have our bin folder, and in the bin folder, we have the license key server dat file. Now that's the file that version 9.0 pulls its licenses from. Now if we open that up with an editing tool, we'll note that our licenses are not in the tool at this time. So the upgrade does not import the licenses. That's a very important thing to note, is that when you upgrade from 8.1.6 to 9.0, you're going to have to take your license dat file that you used for the 8 version and import that information into your 9.0 version. Now, the other thing that you'll note is that when you had version 8.1.6, you had a tool to do that. That does not exist for version 9. It's there in the menu, but if you click it, it's going to come up with an error because that version of the license server is no longer functional. At this point, note that if you go into the Jazz server and do a refresh on the license server, at this point, the licenses are not available for several reasons. Okay, so it was working, we've upgraded the software, and now the licenses are no longer available. So let's go ahead and go back to our upgraded license server. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to note that we have our license file. So let's go back to our software directory where we had our original license file stored, the license dat file. I'm going to go ahead and open that up as well. And there's a couple of things. This is the original file. Now for this file, we do not need the telelogic or the rational lines for the vendor. And right after IBM rational, we're going to have to say that our port for the vendor port equals 27001, because that's the port that our software server, application server, is looking for the vendor port. So let's go ahead and save that. And now we're going to edit, and we're going to select all. We're going to copy that license information, and we're then going to go back and look at our license key server dat file and open that up. And we're going to add that license information into our dat file. All right. Now that's there. We're going to go ahead and save that. And then we're going to come in, now that we've modified our port information and we've added our license to our license server, let's go ahead and restart, or rather start or restart our license key server. If it's not running, start it. If it is running, restart it. And at this point, if we refresh our application server, we now have our licenses available again. And that's it for now. We've upgraded from version 8.1.6 to the supported version 9.0, and the license server is up and running, and there has been no impact to production at this point. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time.